What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Galatea, reporting from quarantined North Yorkshire, United Kingdom, and I hope you're all having a very merry apocalypse.
Yeah, about that. So when I sat at the end of last year and let myself consider how I thought 2020 would turn out, I've got to tell you folks, I didn't expect this.
But don't worry, that's why I'm here, to introduce you to my two best friends in the whole world who can help you get through anything. I know you're all wondering why I'm in the garden, wearing dungarees, the sexiest item of clothing ever invented. And don't worry, it's not because I've set up a commune where we all grow our own food and hide from the government. No, the reason I'm here is to feel closer to the people who raised me. And no, I'm not talking about my parents because I don't want to hurt their feelings, but honestly, they don't understand me like these guys do.
I'm making this video because I want you all to know that in these incredibly weird and uncertain times, no matter how alone and scared you might feel, no matter how long you're stuck in quarantine for, no matter if you're down to your last square of loo roll, Tom and Barbara have got your back.
If you already know who Tom and Barbara are, congratulations! Not only have you been blessed with the knowledge of their existence, but also this video will hopefully already be making complete sense to you. If you don't know who Tom and Barbara are, firstly, oh my god, I'm so sorry for you and that your life up until this point has been so dark and so cold. But don't worry! Don't go! Stick around! Stay and watch this! It will all make sense very soon! If anything, you need to see this more than those already in the know, because from this moment forward, you will be gifted with a world of wholesome joy. This, my friends, is your moment of enlightenment and awakening, where you walk forth into a shining new dawn.
This isn't some sort of religious conversion, is it?
Yes!
Tom and Barbara are exactly the heroes we need right now, and it is my honour to introduce them to you. I'm about to tell you about a little show called The Good Life. And I'm not talking about this show, or whatever the hell this is that I found while doing research. No, I'm talking about this show. The first episode begins on Tom's 40th birthday, where we meet him as a man dissatisfied with his life and yearning for something he can't quite name, to leave a meaningful legacy behind.
I'm not getting all bitter and twisted. I'm not saying, I've had a rotten life, but, well, do you realise that Rachmaninoff composed his first piano concerto at the age of 19?
Tom has a fairly good job at a company that makes those little plastic toys for inside cereal boxes.
I cannot see the world as a giant plastic toy.
But Tom has never risen very high in said company because he's the sort of person that doesn't work hard at anything he doesn't care about. And the problem, as you might have foreseen, is that Tom can't bring himself to care about those little plastic toys inside cereal boxes.
You just drift along. Isn't it all funny? Isn't it all ridiculous? Yes, you do. Grown men getting ulcers over toy hippos.
Well, it is funny, isn't it?
Yes, of course it's funny, but not out loud.
Miss Barton, it is funny, but not out loud.
The Goods live in a nice house in Surbiton, a nice part of London, because of Tom's comfortable office job. But this level of comfort and success is not enough for Tom, because there seems to be no meaning or anything real about what he does, and he thinks his job is stupid.
Oh,
There's Jerry.
here we go again. Commute. Goodbye, darling.
Goodbye, darling. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Keep your bowels open.
But it's not just his job that's the problem.
Job then.
Not especially. A job is a job is a job. It wouldn't make it any better, really, if I were designing something useful. I'd still be a grotty little cog in a whacking great machine. It's quality of life. That's what I'm after. If I could just get it right.
So Tom does some soul searching to figure things out.
I've defined what it is. It's breaking the circle.
What circle?
Going to work, to get money, to translate into things which you use up, which makes you go to work again, etc., etc. The norm. What we should be doing is working at the job of life itself.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Back in the 70s, Tom Good had worked out that we do indeed live in a society. Having discovered this horrendous truth, Tom and Barbara decide to quit the rat race in favour of a more meaningful life, proving that life does indeed begin at 40.
Life begins at 40.
So Tom quits his job and they become self-sufficient, transforming their nice suburban garden into a miniature farm where they keep pigs and chickens and grow their own food, to the horror of Margo and Jerry, their best friends and next-door neighbours, who are both worried for Tom and Barbara's well-being, but also appalled that they have to live next door to it. Hilarity ensues.
And if that sounds like the most wholesome television programme ever made, that's because it is.
Our trowels touch then.
And yes, that's right, they're searching for the good life, and their last name is also Good. So the title is a freaking pun. Do you understand yet how amazing this show is? Side note, in the States, they renamed the show to The Good Neighbors to avoid confusion with this show. Even though that title is nowhere near as good. I mean, just look at this. What is this cover? What, like, who did that? I mean, come on, you guys.
You see, The Good Life, more than any other show, is the show of my childhood. Whenever I was a kid and home alone, or had just watched a scary movie, or was upset or scared for whatever reason, I'd just put on The Good Life. And all was well in the world. Life was good, and that still works to this day. But don't worry, I haven't come here with only my opinions to try and make a good argument with. Ooh, look at me! I'm a middle-class girl in my early 20s, and I'm still at university, studying a master's in the arts to put off getting a proper job for as long as possible. I bet you all think I'm going to base everything off my feelings, huh? No, I will not live up to that stereotype.
You think I came here without factual evidence? What do you take me for? Some kind of snowflake?
I've carried out several highly advanced scientific studies. This may shock you. Here is a genuine image of the brain scan of a psychopath. Now here is an image of the brain of that very same psychopath after watching an episode of The Good Life. I think the data speaks for itself. Still unconvinced? There's more. So here is a graph showing the increase in happiness compared with episodes watched of The Good Life. And that's real. Oh, what's that? It's physically impossible to be unhappy while watching The Good Life? Yeah, and who's surprised by that? Oh, that's right, no one! And here you can see that the state of nirvana has been reached. And that's how you achieve eternal happiness and union with the one true God. And that's just science.
Now, is it possible that the show has just been so ingrained in memories of my childhood and is so tangled up in nostalgic feelings of happiness that I can no longer see it clearly and objectively and would not in fact realise if the show was completely terrible?
Like a parent who wouldn't be able to tell if their child was ugly because they love them so much.
Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean the show isn't good.
Like all the best comedy, this show is character-driven. It has clearly defined themes and meanings that are so perfectly executed through the characters and how they interact with each other. This show is about friendship, partnership, and living with integrity and swimming against the stream, defying the status quo and forging your own path in life.
What is it? What's going on?
It's the goods. They're dancing in their goldfish pond.
So, how do well-developed characters create humour and good storytelling? There are 4 key characters in this show. We have the Goods, Tom and Barbara, a married couple who have decided to go off the grid and live life their way.
We're a very spiritually advanced couple, aren't we?
Then we have the Leadbetters, Margo and Jerry, also a married couple who live next door and who live a very traditional and comfortable life.
This whole thing is getting entirely out of hand. It's like living next door to gypsies.
None of these 4 characters are perfect.
Except Barbara!
But all of these characters, despite their many, many flaws, are wonderful, endearing people that you can't help but warm to, no matter how unbearable they can sometimes be. And yes, Margo, I am mainly talking about you.
I agree with Margo, actually.
Oh, Jerry agrees with Margo. Hang out the flags. 3 cheers.
The point of Jerry and Margo is that they're such perfect foils for Tom and Barbara. They're a constant reminder of exactly what Tom and Barbara are sacrificing in order to live the life they want to live. And they're also the source of a lot of tensions, showing what happens when an alternative lifestyle meets a respectably traditional middle-class one.
If the 4 friends are a microcosm of society, Margo represents the authority of the establishment.
They're going to keep chickens.
Chickens? Does the Residents' Association know about this?
And her husband, Jerry, is your ordinary guy who showcases the stability and rewards that come with playing the game by the rules.
You look like an advert for gracious living.
I am.
Tom represents the rebel, the tearing down of the old and breaking the rules.
What are you anyway, some sort of anarchist?
I've finished with people telling me what to do.
And Barbara, his angel of a wife, symbolises the empathy that every revolutionary needs to keep them grounded and human.
Oh, prezzies! Oh, thanks ever so much. I love prezzies.
Okay, so the idea of someone packing it all in to leave the system and live life the way they want to live it might not seem so revolutionary now, but as I've been led to believe from experts in this era of history, back then it was. And I know there was the whole spiritual hippie movement also going on in the 70s, but something like Tom wrecking his smart suburban garden by driving a plough through it in such a fancy middle-class area was still nuts back then. As well as being good comedy, The Good Life is a great snapshot into that period of time, of that era when the old world was clashing with the new and society was rapidly changing from a more traditional Britain to something we'd more easily recognise today. And I know that the British establishment of today is not quite so strict and, let's say, established as the British establishment of the 70s, but it still feels like such a fresh and relevant show, even if the shock and eccentricity value of Tom is not quite as impactful as it would have been back then.
Am I looking too deeply into a light-hearted sitcom from the 70s?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think so.
It's Tom Good and his magic switch. On, off, on, off, on, off. For my next trick, I shall make Margo smile.
You two really are.
I absolutely love Tom, and I always have. But, like any revolutionary, he's a bit of a bastard.
Right, kettle's boiling.
That's true.
Do you mean to tell me I've got to make my own coffee?
I mean, even Richard Briers himself, the actor who plays Tom, said of his character, and I quote, "I never really liked Tom. I thought he was selfish and obsessed. It was always about him, his ideas, his plans."
I am the centre of attraction at the moment.
And he's not wrong. Tom is a deeply flawed character. He's prideful, arrogant, insensitive, tactless, and can be really quite selfish. He can be unreasonably stubborn in sticking to his principles, and has a tendency to put his ideals above the well-being of actual human beings. When he gets caught up in an idea, it consumes him, and he is often callous and uncaring when it comes to the feelings of others.
Like the time he spent a whole day messing around researching wacky ideas to get the birds to stop eating their plants, while poor Barbara did all of the actual work.
Tom! What are you doing in there?
Research.
Scrubbing out an old rust-covered oven for hours on end.
Are you going to give me a hand now, Tom?
Sorry, love. A bit busy.
And the fact that she was getting ever more upset with him throughout the day completely escaped his notice, because he didn't even consider her once.
You missed a bit.
Thank you. What are you doing?
Cutting out cardboard shapes.
That's you being busy then, is it?
Oh, yes, yes.
Tom might be incredibly clever, but his recklessness, which is often an asset, can sometimes hinder his intelligence. Tom's impatience means that he often doesn't think things through before he does them, resulting in a lot of wasted time and failed ideas. The saying, "only fools rush in," seems to hold true with Tom.
Come here, I've got a surprise for you.
I like that. I like that very much.
Tom's best redeeming quality of all is that he actually deeply cares about his wife, and though he is often insensitive and thoughtless towards Barbara, he is never intentionally cruel to her.
No, that's enough. You're not going out there again. Sit down, please.
All right, just for 5 minutes.
Never mind about 5 minutes. I can't watch this anymore. You've been on the go for 14 hours solid, and all I've done is make cups of tea and a few cheese sandwiches. I've never felt so guilty in my life. Look at you. Look at you. Ladies and gentlemen, you too can do this to your wife. All you have to do is get a bee in your bonnet about self-sufficiency, leave work, build it up as a golden dream, and then make her work like a dray horse.
Oh, come on, Tom.
No, it's easy, folks. They ask you what you've done for your wife, you'll be able to stand up and say, I've made her do without the phone, the car, the telly, new clothes. I've given her poverty, a kitchen full of wet potatoes, and a garden that looks like the Okefenokee swamp. Brilliant. So I go back to work.
Tom is also actually quite a remarkable person, so his arrogance is not entirely unfounded. When he quits his job and is finally doing something he cares about, we see him reach his full potential and see just how capable he really is when he's actually trying his best and working hard at something, rather than being complacent and lazy. Tom proves himself a highly creative innovator, managing to devise simultaneously ingenious and foolish ways to produce their own electricity, for example.
But you can't make electric light out of pig's
Jelly.
Can you?
Tom can. He's making a generator in the cellar.
This I've got to see. Is Leonardo da Vinci at home? I heard that... God, Bennett!
And that's banging out enough electricity to light the house and run the deep freeze.
Good Lord.
Tom is either an idiot or a genius. What he says and does is either very profound or very stupid, and that's how people see Tom throughout the show. Some, like Margo, see him as completely insane for leaving a perfectly good job to mess around in his garden.
Don't you think it's time Tom saw a specialist? I mean, this whole do-it-yourself, go-it-alone business is bordering on the psychopathic. No, I mean, if he's convinced he can just knock up a generator by himself, then it's time he had psychiatric help.
While others see Tom as a wise and brave revolutionary. They do say there's a thin line between madness and genius. And Tom, being Tom, doesn't care what people think about him. He's just doing what he knows will make him happy and bring his life meaning. Tom is the archetype of the wise man disguised as the fool. Describing him as a fool sounds like an insult, but the archetype of the fool actually represents something very important. The court jester was traditionally the only one who could tell rude truths about the monarch and get away with it, because it was done under the guise of a joke. The dynamic of monarch and court jester reminds me very much of the relationship between Margo and Tom, with Margo representing the establishment, and Tom constantly trying to provoke her and wind her up.
Bring out your dead, bring out your dead.
Tom, I do... What is that?
2 dustbins on a trolley.
I know it's 2 dustbins on a trolley, Tom, and when I asked you the question, it was a rhetorical one which does not need a direct answer, as you knew very well in the first place.
Oh, you make me hold my breath when you do those long sentences, Margo.
By doing this, Tom acknowledges that he sees all of the social etiquette and silly rules that Margo loves as a pointless pretense, and he delights in disregarding it.
Then would you please remove them from my crazy paving before someone sees us?
They'll have less chance of seeing us if we hide behind the dustbins.
Tom, I am not in the mood for your smutty schoolboy humour.
Tom is undoubtedly childish,
Anyone fancy a game of hide-and-seek?
and like a child, he often speaks the obvious truth. His essential nature is honest. He's unwilling to go along with something he knows to be false. He's unwilling to pretend. And he just can't help himself poking and prodding at illusions until they fall away. In the tale of the Emperor's New Clothes, Tom would be the supposedly foolish child in the crowd who sees the truth and points and laughs because the Emperor is naked.
Our next mould is going to be a giraffe. And Tom, I'm thinking of putting this giraffe on your plate.
Through joking about how silly his job is, for example, he reveals the truth that those little plastic toys inside cereal boxes are really not very important. important in the grand scheme of things.
Honestly, you should have heard, sir. You would have thought he'd invented penicillin. I couldn't help laughing.
Tom is working for some higher principle, not just himself, and he's willing to put meaning in life above material gain. He's also unwilling to lie to the world and pretend that he cares about something he actually thinks is stupid, even if pretending would make him very rich.
This all shows that Tom is a man of strong principles and great integrity. He stands for something and truly believes in all he does.
In many ways, the fool is made up of the same stuff as the archetypal rebel, the unpredictable wild card, the unstable and chaotic element who creates humour and mischief to provoke, upset the status quo, and speak truth to authority through not taken seriously.
Tom is there to defy the norm, break the rules, shake things up a bit and sweep out the old and the stale to make way for the new. He's an innovator, a revolutionary and a true leader, bravely storming ahead down the road less travelled to show a new way of doing things. Tom is a Robin Hood for the modern day, a fun, unreliable and often irritating outlaw who is a much-needed hero nonetheless.
Tom represents that slightly chaotic and exciting element in society that is always needed if anything is to change. But this energy needs to be kept in balance, otherwise change can easily cross the line into destruction. And that's where Margo comes in.
Hello, Tom. It's Margo.
She symbolises the authority of the establishment and the preserving of the status quo. Even in her relationship with Jerry, she's laying down rules of what should be done and how things should be followed.
It's not funny, Jerry. We all know you think it is.
Margo, in contrast to Tom's revolutionary spirit in forging a new path, holds tradition and order in high esteem. If Tom is there to create the new, then Margo is there to preserve the old. Margo has a lot of authority and is used to being listened to by her community, her friends, and her husband. But not by Tom.
I certainly shan't get a wink of sleep tonight knowing that I'm being abused in your garden.
If you were being abused in my garden, you wouldn't get a wink of sleep, would you?
Tom, either you take down my dress or I shall call the police. And I'm aware that didn't come out right, but you know what I mean.
By the same token, Margo is really the only one out of the group that doesn't praise Tom's genius.
I'm sorry, Tom, but I cannot go into transports of delight every time you accomplish some little thing.
Some little thing. To be fair, Margo, the man's just built his own generator.
Very well. If it'll make everyone happy if I say congratulations, Tom, then congratulations, Tom.
In fact, she's appalled that she's got to put up with his shenanigans, and in Surbiton, no less.
Tom, when will you realise that you are living in Surbiton and not Zaire?
Margo is a social climber and a terrible snob who likes everything to be respectable and in its place as it should be. There's a subtle rivalry between her and Tom because they're both leaders, just in entirely different ways.
By the way,
They won't.
they will.
They won't.
They will.
They won't. They're pinned in.
They will.
They're also both incredibly principled people, but they both have entirely different principles, which leads to them often butting heads.
One of Margo's greatest strengths is also one of her greatest weaknesses. She's pushy and irritating as hell, but boy can she get things done. She's an asset to have on your team. Really, her and Tom are far more alike than she'd like to admit.
Margo has the same problem as Tom, where often her pride and principles get in the way and make her stubborn, unforgiving and inflexible. Like when she forces Tom and Barbara to get rid of their pigs because they promised they would if the pigs ever got into her garden.
Morning, Tom.
She shows no mercy and offers no second chances. They had an agreement, and as far as she is concerned, an agreement should always be honoured on principle.
There's nothing wrong in asking someone to honour an agreement.
That's what they said about Shylock.
Dear old Margo, I do like her.
For the sake of Tom and Barbara, Margo has been known to set her principles aside when she realises how much upset she's caused by making Tom and Barbara give up their pigs. She immediately gives Tom her car keys and tells him to go and get them back.
I didn't ask you to kill them. I thought you would just send them away somewhere.
Where to? Boarding school?
Tom, you don't suppose they sensed where they were going, do you?
No, they say animals know when they're going to die, but mind you, that little cry they made when we closed the tailgate was almost human.
They don't feel anything, do they, when they're
garrotted? I don't think so. Well, not much anyway.
Oh, stop it! For goodness sake, stop it! Look, here are the keys to my car. Go and save your wretched pigs.
Now, you might think that Margo is a worse friend because she's such a snob, but I think the fact that she is such a snob, yet so often overrides that trait and sacrifices her dignity for the well-being of her friends, proves just how loyal she truly is and means so much more.
Now, that is a miracle.
If you really want to understand someone, look at what they do and not at what they say. Most of the stuff that comes out of Margo's mouth is completely unbearable, but her actions are often generous, loyal, and well-meaning.
If you so much as sniggers, I'm going straight back indoors.
Margo, we couldn't be more grateful.
Even I can see that this is a genuine emergency. After all, what are friends for?
Like when she completely unnecessarily buys fancy clothes for Barbara because Barbara can't afford to buy nice clothes anymore.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, well, that's what I thought when I bought it, but I'm afraid it was a terrible mistake.
Jolly expensive mistake.
Well, that's not important. The point is, Barbara, I got it home, I put it on, and I said to myself, Margo, that simply looks cheap and nasty. So I wondered if you'd like it.
Margo comes across a bit like Barbara's mother, always telling her that she's doing things wrong and trying to get involved in her life, but only because she cares.
Barbara. Now, you know me, dear. I never speak out of turn, but...
Margo, despite being something of an unbearable shrew,
Not awfully familiar with the taming of the shrew.
No, Margo does get rather a lot of her own way, doesn't she?
is one of my favourite strong female characters.
Well, if that's the best you can do, we'll be here till Christmas.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Goodbye.
No, Margo!
And I know what you're thinking. Ooh, a 1970s oppressed housewife doesn't sound like an iconic strong female character.
I mean, Margo's doing her best. She's the odd one out here. It's not her fault if she's all weak and feeble.
But, well, you're wrong.
Weak and feeble, am I?
Move over, Captain Marvel, because, sweetie, you're no match for Margo Leadbetter.
It require the most enormous amount of effort. I mean, I'd sooner pay the electricity bills, personally.
I'd sooner you paid the electricity bills personally.
Meaning what, Jerry?
When I come home from the office, sometimes our house looks like the Blackpool illuminations.
So you want me to stumble about in the dark, do you?
I'm just saying you might consider the price of electricity sometimes.
I'm very sorry, Jerry. Perhaps we ought to live in an almshouse and be done with it.
You'd have made a marvellous photographer, the way you enlarge everything.
That's a very fair coming from someone who's just forbidden me to burn a single electric light bulb in my own house.
I'm just saying you might save it sometimes. For instance, when you're upstairs and you come downstairs, turn off the light upstairs.
And fall down the stairs. Look, Jerry, if you want me to fall down the stairs, why don't you just trip me up or loosen the stair rods or simply throw me bodily down and have done with it?
Seriously, if anyone's oppressed in that marriage, it's Jerry.
At least you agree with me on something, Jerry. Even if you did start a silly argument in front of Tom and Barbara and threaten to throw me down the stairs.
Margo is strong, stubborn, pushy, organised, generous, unintentionally hilarious, takes absolutely no shit, and has a hell of a lot of respect for herself.
Margo.
Yes?
Thanks, sexy.
Don't be silly.
And also, she's got a softer side.
Jerry called me Shylock.
Look, I've been having a chat with Margo. Do you have to keep pigs?
Jerry, you've been sent over from enemy lines with a message.
If Margo is the queen, then Jerry is her long-suffering, but fundamentally loyal general.
This is range war.
I never wanted it to come to this.
All right, Jerry, it's not you.
Indeed 'tis not. Go in peace, good general, but tell thy sovereign lady this. If she doth bite her thumbs at us, e'en do we back unto her our thumbs. Be back.
Can we all just have more respect for Jerry, please? He's always doing things for other people.
Sir, but has never been very strong on miracles.
Gemmo, peasants!
I take it back, I take it back, I take it back.
Jerry! Come in, Jerry.
Well, I just looked in to say hello.
Oh, that's what you think.
Like running around after his wife
Door, please, Jerry. Chair, please, Jerry. Door, please, Jerry.
and helping out Tom and Barbara.
Well, we had this terrible storm, that's why it's wonderful to see you, Jerry. We've got to get all that stuff in before it rots.
Yeah, how about it, mate? Will you help us?
No, I'll help you. Of course I will.
Come on, we're going to be here all night.
Now, look, if it hadn't been for Jerry, we'd have lost a third of this by now.
Good old Jerry.
Good old Jerry.
Good old Jerry.
Good old Jerry!
Good old Jerry!
Good old Jerry.
Good old Jerry!
He's married to Margo, for God's sake.
I'm sorry. I've obviously come at the wrong moment.
Oh, no, dear. Jerry was just having one of his little tantrums.
Give it a rest, shall we, Margo?
That in itself deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award. Jerry doesn't have a problem with anybody as long as they're just letting him do his thing. Yeah, initially he does try to help Tom get his job back.
I feel I just can't stand aside and let him see him ruin his life like this. I thought if we could get him back to the company.
But when he realises that Tom and Barbara are happy doing what they're doing, he just shrugs and lets them get on with it.
Jerry is very grounded and doesn't chase any fanciful ideas. He's not as optimistic and joyful as Barbara and Tom, but nor is he completely humourless like Margo.
You know, you're not as much fun as you used to be, Tom.
Shouldn't have married me then, should you?
He has a dry, sardonic and slightly sceptical sense of humour,
Morning.
I see the pills aren't having any effect.
as if he's been beaten into being cynically realistic about everything by his job and Margo. In short, Jerry is very sensible.
He's the realist to Tom's idealist, the voice of reason to Margo's unreasonableness. I know Jerry has a pretty nice job and a pretty nice house, but in this scenario, he still represents your ordinary bloke who just wants to live his life.
Jerry represents the stability you're rewarded with if you play by the rules and just get on with things without causing a fuss and rocking the boat. He's the soldier who follows his orders and doesn't cause trouble. He's there to show what Tom could have been and could have had if Tom didn't have his principles.
Tom, I can't help it if luxury and I are mutually attractive.
Money in the bank and food on the table is more important to Jerry than forging his own path in life.
He's not there to go around being all revolutionary and breaking all the rules. Jerry just wants to do his own thing and let others do theirs. Live and let live. He wants to work hard and then relax in his armchair with a drink afterwards. And I don't begrudge Jerry that. I really don't.
The last time I ended up mucking out your chickens. No, thank you. I'm going home to a nice, boring, civilised martini and a decadent sit-down in my armchair.
For Jerry, comfort and stability are what's important in life. And though he might have to sometimes put his pride and self-respect aside in order to grovel so that he can get ahead in the world, well, at least he's honest about it.
Hey, how come you've got Friday off anyway? Been crawling round Sir again?
Yes.
He does what he's got to do to provide, and he acknowledges that. And as he's not hurting anybody or screwing anybody over, I respect it.
And you know something? I was frightened of you then. No, don't mess about. I'll tell you why. You were a better draftsman than I was, and you had better qualifications than mine. I was going to have to rely on pure cunning just to keep up with you. Still, I needn't have bothered, need I? Because look at us. I'm up here, and you're down there.
Why?
Because you use about 1/10 of your ability. I have to use all mine, and what I lack I make up for with sheer bloody crawling.
He's also got humility. He admits directly to Tom that he is neither as clever nor as talented as Tom, and this doesn't hurt his pride at all to say this. He's like the army general who's got respect for his opposition. If Tom was Captain Jack Sparrow, Jerry is that officer who tips the hat to him.
That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen. So it would seem.
Though he enjoys an easy life, Jerry is a fundamentally decent bloke.
Anything special you'd like for dinner?
Anything except pork?
Well, I must say, Jerry, I never realised before that you were so fond of pigs.
I'm not. I think they're nasty, smelly creatures, but I'd rather have Tom and Barbara as friends with pigs than not friends without them.
Jerry is also very sweet to Barbara. He really looks out for her and often seems more sensitive to her feelings than Tom is.
Hello, Jerry.
Hi, dollface.
And yes, this is probably because he's a little bit in love with Barbara, but honestly, who can blame him? Because who isn't a little bit in love with Barbara?
I do wish you were coming with us, Barbara.
So do I.
No, I was being serious, Jerry.
Oh, so was I.
Speaking of the sweetheart of Surbiton, I saved the best till last. In case I didn't get the message across, Barbara is too good for this world. Next time you're unsure of things, I want you to ask yourself, what would Barbara do? And do that. There is no wrong answer to that question because Barbara always does the right thing. And that's how I ended up in my garden, wearing dungarees, enjoying nature, bothering nobody and having a great time. Barbara is the maid Marian to Tom's rebellious Robin Hood. And Margo is obviously the Sheriff of Nottingham, but that's neither here nor there. I think Barbara's greatest trait is her loyalty. She really took her marriage vows seriously, because she goes with Tom through thick and thin, richer, poorer, better or worse.
Feminist disclaimer! Alert! Alert! Feminist disclaimer! Feminist disclaimer! Alert! Alert! Feminist disclaimer! Feminist disclaimer! Alert! Alert! Feminist disclaimer!
This doesn't mean that Barbara is subservient and follows Tom blindly. Being loyal and being a blind follower are two entirely different things. And Barbara is no blind follower. True loyalty is pointing out flaws and errors, disagreeing with someone and compromising with them and sticking by their side anyway. Barbara is not a pushover, and despite what Margo says, she does not allow anyone to walk all over her.
Not on your own.
Now you sit down or I'll kick your sticks from under you.
But it's futile.
Don't you call me futile. You just watch my dust.
It started raining again.
Well, watch my mud then.
That's my girl.
Barbara keeps Tom grounded, humble and sensible. She often outsmarts him and foresees the blind spots that Tom is either too reckless or arrogant to have considered.
Ta-da!
What is it?
A Chinese bird scarer. Windy blow, caney rattle.
What happens when the wind doesn't blow?
I couldn't even remember all the things I loved about Barbara because there's so many of them. So I made a list. Barbara is thoughtful, selfless, supportive, hardworking, and loads of fun.
I would rather rely on the national grid system.
Unless, of course, there are power cuts.
What's that, Barbara?
Well, this mob of neo-Marxists down the power station, they're threatening cuts. Imminent, you said, Margo?
Imminent.
Well, I hope they change their minds. I mean, power cuts can be rotten, especially for people without their own generators.
Oh, Tom, for people without their own generators, it's going to be terrible. I mean, power cuts always cause accidents, you know. Sometimes people are falling downstairs in the dark. That's
Yes, quite.
She reminds me of a cheeky imp. She's joyful and shares Tom's mischievous and rebellious nature.
She's going to bring in Mr. Carter.
Oh, no, not Mr. Carter!
Anything but that.
Oh!
Who is Mr. Carter?
And she also doesn't care about the status quo or what people think of her. But unlike Tom, she's not a dick about it. Tom doesn't care if he has to trample over others in his quest to forge his own path, but Barbara is more considerate of others.
Oh, Tom, for goodness sake, that's the most ungrateful thing I've ever heard.
Yes, she sometimes enjoys winding people up, but she's less grating and rude than Tom.
You're good, dear. Has he got a name?
Yes, Margo.
There goes.
In many ways, she is too good for Tom, but in many more ways, they are absolutely perfect for each other, bring out the best in each other, and are most certainly #couple goals.
I'd run off with you if you weren't married.
Seriously, who cares about Kim and Kanye, Beyonce and Jay-Z, that girl from Game of Thrones and the Jonas Brother, or whoever the current celebrity it couple is, when Tom and Barbara exist? Wouldn't you all to think about that? Do some soul searching, seriously. Much as I love Margo, Jerry and Tom, the three of them are not particularly understanding or empathetic people. Margo is unforgiving, Jerry is cynical, and Tom is dismissive. Barbara is essential to balance them out, to bring in some nurturing energy and to make the three of them bearable.
Oh, dear, it really hurts, doesn't it?
Somewhat. Well, I'll probably better tomorrow morning.
Yes, well, is there anything you want?
No, thanks, love.
Oh, dear. Good night. Ironside.
Barbara is the heart of this show. She's the glue that holds the four of them together, and she gives some much needed warmth, humanity and practicality to Tom's inflexible idealism. So during this tricky time, all I have to say to you is, be more Barbara. If you're you're going to watch The Good Life, and you should, you must watch beyond the first episode. Give the show an opportunity to find its feet and win you over. I'd give it to episode 3, and if you still don't like it, then fine, you're a lost cause, I'd give up. So yeah, to conclude this video, I think it's safe to say that things have changed a little since my last upload. I've been meaning to do a video on The Good Life for well over a year now, and it just seems appropriate that I'm releasing it now, even though it was purely coincidental. I know a lot of people are worried at the moment, whether because of their or a loved one's health, or fears about losing jobs and businesses, because God knows what's going to happen to the economy by the end of this. My family is in tourism and hospitality, so yeah, we're right there with a hell of a lot of other people and small businesses in those industries that have been forced to shut down. Because we all know that the tourism industry is just going to be booming this year. Hooray. No, but seriously, and we're still amongst the lucky ones because everyone in my family is pretty healthy and, thank God, touch wood, likely to all be okay.
Now, I'm the last person who would ever wish to sound overly pretentious, but a television show about people who hold fast to each other and to the meaning they find in their lives above monetary gain has got to be a hopeful message right now. And I know a television show isn't real life and doesn't show a lot of the realities of financially struggling.
And I know that just saying material possessions aren't important, you can't take money with you when you die, hashtag spiritually evolved, is far easier said than done. My family have already lost everything once before, so I know it's really no picnic, and that remembering what's really important in life doesn't put food on the table, unfortunately. But it does help put things into perspective. And Tom and Barbara are experts at remembering what's really important in life. For many of us, this time might be uncertain and uncomfortable, but it's far from the end of the world, despite what I titled this video.
And if it is, well, then you can always watch The Good Life for tips and tricks on how to grow your own food and make your own clothes in the end times.
Stay in your houses, wash your hands, channel some of that wartime spirit, ration your toilet roll, and be more Barbara.
And now, my friends, all rise for the official sound of happiness.
Keep calm and carry on, chaps.
LOL, psych! Yeah, BBC, that's right. You really think I'm going to play the outro music and let myself get copyright striked by you? Again, by the way, because thanks very much for copyright claiming my review video of Noughts and Crosses, which was, again, I say, a review video, and definitely falls under fair use. I didn't even use any audio from the show in that video. I mean, Jesus Christ, even the company that runs bloody Shadowhunters, they didn't claim my video on them, did they? Did they? So how does it make you feel, BBC, to be worse than the company responsible for the Shadowhunters TV series? Huh? I mean, seriously, I'm actually being serious here. The amount of time that I've spent on this video is embarrassing, and if I don't make at least a tenner on it, I'm gonna be really pissed off. I'm really pissed off. I swear, just £10. I won't even make much on this video. Swear to God, this video is fair use. Because we all know that the BBC really needs more money, don't they? Oh yeah, you BBC and your licence fees. Yeah, what you need is more money. That's right, poor BBC. Well, you know what, BBC? You can jog on, mate, because Doctor Who's rubbish now, and I haven't even watched Top Gear since Jeremy Clarkson left. So, who's the real winner? Yeah.